Warm greetings from the high 10. It's Everyday Shenanigans. Thanks for joining me. Hope you all are having a wonderful Saturday. Uh, Please be safe out there. Thank you all so much, Pandora's Box, Susan, Monique. Thank you so much for joining me. Sorry for taking so long. This is a two-part live pertaining to Uvalde. I want to touch on the teacher that was wounded that we never heard about in the beginning of this mass shooting. While all of a sudden we're now hearing about this teacher a week ago being wounded, a male teacher. I want to touch on that. I also want to go back a week or so when another teacher was brought to fruition as the one that held the door open, another version that this teacher is giving versus what we have been told. We're going to touch on that. Those two teachers, the wounded teacher, the teacher that allegedly left the door open, who now has an attorney, and Cal City. There's an update pertaining to indictment charges, new charges brought against Jacqueline and Trezell West. We're going to talk about both subject matters. I will drop the link if you would like to give your opinion pertaining to both subject matters, and we will roll from there. First subject matter is Cal City. Thank you so much for joining me. 23 ABC News is the source.
Thanks, Brandon. Turning now to new developments in the case of the West boys. Their adoptive parents arraigned today, charged with killing the boys. Trezell and Jacqueline West face 7 charges, including 2 counts of second-degree murder, 2 counts of child cruelty, falsely reporting an emergency, involuntary manslaughter, and conspiracy. The trial is set to begin July 25th.
July 25th. It's the trial date. The state is moving forward with the indictment against the couple who are currently incarcerated in a California jail with no bond. When I get more information, I will bring that said information. Thank you all so much for joining me. I will read you the indictment per the news. If you need verification for anything mentioned in this live, there is a source to all information. And I bring you the source. So if you have any problems, I say you take it up with the news agent that brings the information. Thank you so much for joining me. Let me see if sorry about that. I'm trying to see if I had an article pertaining to this. Yes, I do. Hold on. KGET, NBC News is the source. KRON4. Cal City boys, Trezell, Jacqueline West, right on new indictment. The adoptive parents of Orrin and Orson West were arraigned Friday on new charges of involuntary manslaughter and conspiracy. Trezell and Jacqueline West arrested in March on suspicion of killing Orrin 4, Orson 3. Now each face a total of 7 charges. The grand jury returned a superseding indictment that includes the new charges as well as those brought in the original indictment in March. In all, the West faced 2 counts of second-degree murder, 2 counts of child cruelty, falsely reporting an emergency, involuntary manslaughter, and conspiracy. Ms. Torres Stallings, the attorney for Jacqueline West, asked that bail be set for her client, but Judge Judith K. Dossett said the defendants will remain held without bail. She did, however, say motions seeking bail could be filed on behalf of both defendants and be heard at a later date. Trial remains set for July 25th. The bodies of Orrin and Orson have not been found, and prosecutors have not revealed the manner in which they believe they died. A gag order issued in March remains in effect and bars prosecutors and the West attorneys, investigators, and court staff from speaking about the case. Involuntary manslaughter is defined under California law as when a person commits a crime or an unlawful act in an unlawful manner that causes the death of another person, but they did not intend to kill and did not act with conscious disregard for human life. Defense attorney Kyle J. Humphrey, who is not involved in the case, said involuntary manslaughter filed in the death of a child covers a variety of scenarios: swallowing drugs that parents left in the open, failure by a caretaker to provide proper nutrition, refusing to get medical care for serious symptoms. One of the reasons a grand jury could be asked to reconvene in a case where an indictment has previously been handed down. Its proper charges weren't brought based on mitigating circumstances, Humphrey said. Since defense attorneys aren't present and there's no cross-examination of witness brought before a grand jury, it's the responsibility of the prosecutors to present mitigating evidence. For example, Humphrey said, if a witness reports seeing a red car from a distance, but prosecutors know the witness has vision issues, it's their responsibility to give that information to the grand jury. Prosecutors allege Orrin and Orson were killed about 3 months before the West reported them missing, December 21st, 2020. Dozens of searches have been conducted and digging performed at sites in California City and Bakersfield. A criminal protective order bars the West from seeing their biological children and 2 remaining adoptive children. Prosecutors sought the order out of the concerns the West would influence the children about the criminal case. Among the charges against the West is an allegation they induced a minor to assist in committing a crime, suggesting at least one of the children witnessed what happened and will be called to testify. Woo, a lot of information. KRON4 is the source. Thank you for joining me. Let's chop up what was said in this so I don't forget, because I have another subject matter to bring to you. We will intercede the topics during the live. Feel free to comment on both. I want to make sure I'm very thorough in my commentary and in the information. I will start at the top of the article. Okay, they've been arraigned, this time for involuntary manslaughter and conspiracy. Most of you know what the word conspiracy means, that you conspired to do something, which means you had forethought and will to do wrong. Involuntary means many things. I didn't feed the person. I didn't get the medical care. I didn't intend to kill them, but yet they're also facing second-degree murder. Also, the induction of inducing a child, which means I ordered a child to participate harming another child. That's what they are being charged with. As they said in this commentary, it is the state's burden to prove, not the defense. It is the state's burden to prove these 2 used their child to commit heinous acts against said 2 boys. The reason why you know all this is willful intent to harm and maliciously cause the demise of the children is because you have 2 children. You can't logically explain to a free-thinking, lucid adult that you were playing around, goofing off with your children to play whatever with the other children. You can't explain it logically. Even if you said to one child, hit the other one, and then the child kept hitting the other one or others jumped in, you're still liable because you're the adults. You're the caretaker. And you knew better. And then you're coercing someone that's not of age, a minor. Now you factor in child number 2. How are you going to logically explain to a jury that it's an accident, 1, 2, however many children harming 2 children simultaneously? That means the eyewitness is going to give an account that he was there as an active participant in harming the child. You will also probably have the other child be there to testify as a witness and co-conspirator, plural. So then you have to ask yourself the ultimate question. How many children are actually co-conspirators and witnesses? How many children engaged in the act of harming the 2 small babies? Because there was a total of 6 children. How many children were coerced by Jacqueline and Giselle West to harm the baby boys? That's number 1. Number 2, how many children were witnesses? Number 3, how did the children meet their demise? Number 4, where are the children discarded? Thank you for joining me. They deserve every count. because the sick part of the story is that they adopted these children, allegedly took the children in on good faith to raise them when they already came from a dire situation from the bio mother, and then placed in foster care, and then they took care of the children through foster care and then adopted the children a year after the children lived in their home as foster children. And they did not do right, diligent. They were not even humane. Let's use that word. They were not humane by the children. They were inhumane. And 9 times out of 10, they had been mistreating the children because, as many have said, it's common sense. You can't explain abusing 2 children. Logically, you can't even explain 1, but 2 shows willful intent to harm. So that means there was something about these boys they did not like. And I won't doubt that they did not, they possibly mistreated their other children, because your mind is going to wander. Why these 2 babies? You remember back in the original interview, he used the word, Mr. Trezell, rambunctious. When you see the 2, they will be. He was reliving what he had done to the children. They were rambunctious. That's why we did what we did to them. Got rid of them. Too much to handle. The children that become a burden. And for whatever reasons that they adopted the children, whether you want to believe that this was a money-making scam scheme, a way of supporting themselves, possibly so. California is a very expensive state. It costs a lot to live in the state of California. You have to have your ducks in a row and your paper right to live in this state. Everybody knows this. And perhaps this was their way of making money. At one time, Mr. Trezell did have a job, but at last reporting, with all the commentary, a job has never been rendered for either parent. So perhaps before it came out that they reported the children missing, this was their means of survival, was monies from the state to take care of the said 4 children. And possibly if there was something wrong mentally with the other 2 children that are their biological children, the older 2 boys, they would have received monies for those said children if indeed those older boys had some type of disability. And then you factor in the fact of the younger children having disabilities, they would have received some type of money from Social Security for the said children, plus monies from the state. It's a very diabolical thought process to think that someone would go and foster children for the money. But it has happened. It will continue to happen because, as I have said in many of my commentaries on this network, you do not know people that well-dressed, well-suited, well-homes, made up, painted faces means nothing. 2 cars in the garage, a dog, a cat, goldfish, it means nothing. You're looking at aesthetics, but you're not inside the mind of the human being. You're not behind closed doors when the secrets will bellow out. And that is the problem with us as citizens. We think we know everything about people. We brag about people. We put people on pedestals when we don't really know them. And you can never possibly know anyone. And when it comes to true crime, you hear this time and time again. Oh, I know him. I know her. She would not do that. She would never go along with him. No, no, no. That's my sister. That's my friend. That's my coworker. Oh, that's my mother. It's no such thing. It's no such thing. Even the nicest of man and woman has committed fraud, adultery, murder, attempted murder, hiding a fugitive, lying in affidavits, government interrogations. People are people. Those are the said charges. Jacqueline Trezell West, they're facing 7 charges. What you also have to ask is, what evidence did the state take before the grand jury? As you heard in this commentary, it is up to the state to show the burden of these 2 being guilty of inducing the child into a crime. What was the evidence? Was one of the children the evidence? One of the children told, yes, I'm the one. He is the one who helped harm the children, which led to their death. Did he also tell what happened after the fact where the children were discarded? Do the remaining children know where the small children are discarded? And many of you are going to wonder the motive. The motive will never matter because you're dealing with a diabolical mind, plural, times 2. The effects of the children now, if they indeed have any help, the demise of the children, you're now talking about baby killers walking around. You have to ask yourself, how safe are these children around other children? Because to be induced into a crime, you can't take it back. So you now have a child who has caused the demise of another child, plural, 2 children. Also, were the children killed at the same time? Very good question. Is this a 1-day event, 2-day event, 2 to 3 weeks event? One killed 1 week, one killed the second, third week. What will be revealed in court? The timeline of the children's demise. It's very scary information. Falsely reporting a crime, calling 911 to say that the children were missing. Indeed, they deserve that charge as well because you used up resources for the community and law enforcement to be looking for the said children in Cal City when you knew they were nowhere around to be found because you discarded them months before. And then the case a month later was handed over to Bakersfield because they got information from Cal City that the children were possibly discarded in Cal City and or were murdered in Bakersfield, So Bakersfield got the case a month later. So that means also information was passed to Bakersfield. The sick part of the story is that all this time we've been sitting here wondering where the children are. Law enforcement and the district attorney's office has known for months that the children were not alive. And obviously the family members of the biological family knew because as reported, the father had to give DNA. So that means he had knowledge about the children and possibly to further investigate with a lawyer to, sue the state, blah, blah, blah. That's where I have a problem with law enforcement because all this time you knew that the children were possibly dead because it's been said in the indictment that it was probably a week later that you all notified Bakersfield. But we didn't know that. We only knew of a month, them getting the case a month later. So that means one of the children told, which is the evidence. The children told it. But you never let the public know that the children were possibly dead, which I have a problem with that. Because putting up posters, billboards, naturally is the right thing to do because the children were not visible. But people were assuming whatever. They're missing in Cal City. They're missing in Bakersfield. Nobody knew anything. People were speculating. So that's early on, which is baffling because we're now in 2022 and you come out with these indictments and then you tell us, oh yeah, but by the way, besides us getting information, the children are involved in the deaths orchestrated by the parents. We already knew that they were dead a year ago. Now, there's nothing wrong with trying to find the bodies of the children. That is so they can be properly laid to rest. I get that. But not informing the public that their children are dead from information you've got. You didn't have to tell us where the information came from because you still were investigating the parents and putting your investigation together. But I think you had a right to tell the public that we believe the children are deceased from information we have gotten during this investigation. Because that would have stopped a lot of people from wondering if they were sold, trafficked, kidnapped, whatsoever. And all the wild theories and shenanigans and crazy participants that jumped out of clown cars pertaining to the children just made a mockery out of a case when all along the children were not even alive. Now that's the jacked up part of the story. Let's see what else we have pertaining to this case. Just want to make sure I touch on everything mentioned in this article. The two defendants have pled not guilty. Now, the baffling part about their pleas is that they know that the state has to have evidence, which is probably 4 itty-bitty spiders under the age of 18. They have to know that the children have talked. Come on now. And you're that honorary to walk into a courtroom and plead not guilty when you know that you orchestrated the deaths of these children, however, discarded the children, and then waited months later when you moved to Cal City to lie and say that the children were kidnapped. These are some dirty people. Dirty is not even really the appropriate word to use for Jacqueline and Giselle West. And possibly their mothers, fathers, uncles, whomever, sisters, brothers also knew that something happened to the children. So will there also be other arrests pertaining to side pieces who have known that the children were gone permanently, such as deceased, his mother, his father, Jacqueline's mother, parents, whomever? Because at some point somebody had to ask, where are the children? See, it's a difference if you just had them as foster children and you said, oh, they went back. Nobody probably would question that. But when you adopted them and they're nowhere around, what excuse are you going to give when you live a reclusive lifestyle and you don't have a lot of friends and family and you don't hang around a lot of people? What lie did they use to say where the children were? Or did he just come out and tell his mother, family, that he killed the kids? That he had his children, killed the children, and Jacqueline disposed of them. And who was the ringleader also in the demise of the children? Was it Mr. Trezell? Was it both he and the wife Jacqueline? Because many of you have pointed fingers at one or the other as being the orchestrator in the beginning before we had this indictment of who you thought was the orchestrator in the deaths of the children. But in the end, you couldn't say because you don't know them. You're looking at their behavior in one interview. After that, they fell off, which showed you that they were complicit in knowing where the children were, because it's illogical to report your children missing and then disappear after the fact. Very baffling information. The fact that the state wanted a protective order against the two from seeing their children. This is also a dicey subject matter. I asked this in my last commentary when I talked about this indictment. When was the last time that Jacqueline and Giselle West had access to their children? Because obviously they had seen the children after they were removed from their care, which was last winter. So therefore, they were walking free for a year. So when was the last time they had a supervised visit with their children? Because what will be baffling and disturbing is if we find out they saw their children up until they were arrested. That means the district attorney and law officials deceived the public of the children's deaths for a year. 2, you allowed 2 demons to have access to the children knowing they killed their 2 babies. So the fact that you mentioned in this protective order that are reasons for not wanting them to have access to the children is not to coerce them, or we're a little too late for that. The deed's been done. You have 2 dead babies out there somewhere. So it's a little late to be worrying about what Jacqueline and Giselle West would do to the remaining 4, what they would say to them, whisper to them. It's too late. But I get it. You don't want them saying, don't you say anything. Don't you tell anything. But it is too late because that's how law enforcement got the information that the children, how they died, and that they're dead. It's from the children. The children told it. So they've already spilled the beans. The only thing that hasn't been revealed naturally is where the children can be found. Where are the children? Will we ever find out where the children have been discarded? Will we ever get to peacefully put the children to rest? Because this is a very heinous crime. Because in your minds, you're wondering, what really happened to the children by the other children? How many children are involved in the deaths of the children? Were the children murdered at the same time? And where are the children discarded? And naturally, why in God's name would you kill 2 little bitty babies? The children have not been found. This is just an update on the arraignment of Jacqueline and Trezell West. If you need verification for the said information, please go back to the beginning of this live where you can get the information. Thank you all so much. One moment, please. Prayers for the children that they get some information pertaining to where they can be located. Hopefully these 2 demons will have some type of feeling inside of them to tell the truth, where they can find the children. They know they're never going to get away with this crime. I don't know why they would not just go ahead and plead guilty and put an end to this, not even go to trial. Just tell the judge where the children can be found, the children can be located, have a burial, and then they get their time in prison and be done with it. Why go through the trial when you know you aided your kids, coerced your children to murder your children? It's cruel. What you did to your children was cruel. What you did to the babies is cruel. And what you're doing to the general public is cruel by going into court and pretending you had nothing to do with the deaths of these kids. This is bad. 25th. I believe it's July 25th. Let me go back in. Hold on one second. Let me make sure I get that date correct. Yes, trial starts July 25th. This live is pertaining to the 2 being arraigned on Friday of new charges. They are facing 7 charges, Jacqueline and Trezell West, in the deaths of their 2 baby boys. 2 counts of second-degree murder, 2 counts of child cruelty, falsely reporting an emergency, involuntary manslaughter, and conspiracy are the last 2 new charges in this said indictment. And all of you know what conspiracy means. Involuntary means what it means. But some people aren't going to really care about that. But you didn't feed the children. You didn't get the medical care, malnourishment, etc., etc. But I do believe it's all deliberate in my book. I got a feeling they had been mistreating the children probably from the jump, which is always going to lead people to wonder, why in the world would you take these children in? Did you also mistreat your other adoptive foster children? And also, how did they treat their own biological children? Thank you for joining me. This is Everyday Shenanigans. The next subject matter is pertaining to Mercy Uvalde. I've been meaning to touch on this for 1 week about the teacher who opened the door, allegedly. I also want to touch on the male teacher who's come forward to say he was wounded. Why did they not mention that a teacher was in one of the rooms, 111, 112, in the beginning of this story? Now he's out talking. Everybody's doing a story about him. We never heard that there was a third teacher. We never heard that a teacher was wounded. We just heard children were killed. Two teachers were killed. Children were killed. Okay? 19 children, 2 teachers. Now we have this information of a male teacher who does not want to go back into the schoolhouse again. And he happens to be in one of the rooms and got shot. So I like to know, why is this mockingbird now coming out talking? Not to be mean, but you understand what I'm saying. Why did you all not tell us about him being in the room with the other teachers? We're going to touch on that. I'm going to replay his commentary. He does not want to go back into school again, so that means he probably doesn't want to teach again unless it's virtual. And we're also going to get commentary on the lady who has been accused of leaving the door open. She's getting ready to give her rendition of what actually happened that day. I'm also going to play commentary from the pediatrician who attended to the deceased bodies of the children. Thank you for joining me. Also, let's touch on the funeral services continue as we speak in Uvalde. Prayers to all those who passed away and their family members. KENS5 is my source pertaining to the funeral services. Thank you all so much.
And services continue this morning for the 21 people killed at Robb Elementary.
Monica Coleman is in Uvalde, where the community remembering one of the teachers and another student today. Monica.
Driven, athletic, and funny. Those are the words that Lexi Rubio's family used to describe her. Right behind me in downtown Uvalde at the plaza, her memorial still stands strong. And her parents, driven as well, testifying before Congress for gun control Wednesday, recounting finding out about their daughter's death hours after leaving Lexi's school award ceremony on the morning of the shooting. According to Lexi's obituary, her recent dream was to play softball at St. Mary's University, where she planned to major in math and become a lawyer. Rubio's family says the 10-year-old loved to bake cookies, chocolate chip, or sugar cookies with sprinkles alongside her grandmother. Lexi's visitation will be held today at 10 a.m. at the First Baptist Church. Lexi will be laid to rest Saturday. Also today, one of the two teachers slain by the gunman, Ava Morales, will be laid to rest today at 10 a.m. at Sacred Heart Catholic Church in Uvalde. Morales was an educator for 17 years. According to her family, she loved CrossFit, hiking, and spending time with her dog, Kane. Morales was a fourth grade teacher, but she was also a mother, wife, sister, and daughter. She spent her last moments on earth protecting her students. And you can see the memorial still stands strong here in the downtown plaza. Flags across the town are at half staff as everyone here in Uvalde continues to grieve the 21 victims. In Uvalde, Monica Coleman, KENS 5.
All right, KENS 5 News, San Antonio. That's pertaining to the funeral services. That's a day ago. I brought you commentary pertaining to Jacqueline and Giselle West, 23 ABC News. I brought you the long list of what's in the indictments against them. We're now going to hear from the pediatrician who became overwhelmed by what he saw on that fateful day. This content was uploaded 3 days ago. ABC News is the source.
Spoke with Uvalde's one and only pediatrician there, Dr. Roy Guerrero, for an interview on Nightline. He treated most of those victims, and here's a preview of what he told Mireya.
One of my colleagues texted me and said, "Hey, why are our trauma surgeons and PD anesthesiologists on call for a mass casualty in Uvalde?" So immediately I responded with, What are you talking about?
Yeah.
So I put two and two together. I rushed out of where we were having lunch. I rushed out of there, went to the hospital, and yeah, lo and behold, our worst nightmare had come true.
What was it like when you walked in those doors?
Still to this day, gut wrenching, nauseating, chaotic. Just parents wondering where their kids are, right? Yelling out. Some of them who recognized me by name, calling me and saying, "Hey, please go look for X, Y, and Z kiddo." And yeah, it was heart wrenching. It was terrible. A situation you never thought that you would actually be in, But I think what happened more so than anything else that I've never mentioned before is that for being a small town, 15,000 people, we're not a trauma center. We're not a trauma hospital. We're not equipped or made to deal with this type of scenario.
Mireya Villarreal joining me now with more. Mireya, we heard the doctor talk about not being prepared for something like this. I don't think any doctor is prepared for something like this. What more did he reveal about that day to you?
He talks about the fact that, they teach them medicine, right? And how to put together, people put them back together, right? But you can't prepare to see a child with this kind of a bullet wound on them. What you can't prepare these doctors for is how to react to children in this moment. And it's almost kind of a mental therapy situation, calming them down enough to allow them to get treated. He became sort of this liaison while in the hospital that day because he knew all of these children that were in there or that were missing for that matter. So as he would see the parents outside, some of them so desperate just to know where their kids were, he would go inside and try and basically put them together so that everyone started to calm down in this situation. I think he said the hardest point for them was as things started to slow down a little bit later on in the afternoon, they were given this alert that, a few more patients were going to come in, ambulances were coming, and to be outside in the waiting area because they were going to need to triage like 14 more people. And he said that they went out there and they waited and they waited. And those 14 children never showed up. And so he said, for us, that was an indication of how high the death toll was.
What else did he say that really moved you, Maria, that we need to hear tonight?
I think for us, so the reason why we wanted to talk to Dr. Guerrero right now is because he, along with several other people, other families from Uvalde, are headed to Washington, D.C. They will testify in front of Congress. And he has a very strong message. This is a rural area, and he grew up around guns. So this isn't about taking people's guns away. This is about putting regulations in place, putting policies in place that serve some sort of compromise and try and prevent this from happening again in this magnitude. He is traveling with Mia Cerillo and the Cerillo family. Kira, it's kind of hard to believe, but this is Mia and her mom's first trip on an airplane. This is a young girl who talks about how she had to take blood from another child and smear it on her face and play dead in order to stay alive. Her bravery to speak and to testify in this moment is admirable. And he talks a little bit about that, about what this is going to be like, and the change that he is pushing for right now. He said, this is our moment to talk and to speak out and to really come to the table and make some true changes happen.
It still just is incredible for me to think that a child would think to do that, Maria. And just hearing more of those details, actor Matthew McConaughey, as you know, who's from Uvalde, just addressed reporters at the White House briefing room. I just want to play a little bit of this. It was a passionate plea, clearly, for gun reform as he's on the Hill, hoping to make a difference there. Take a listen.
Enough of the counterpunching. Enough of the invalidation of the other side. Let's come to the common table that represents the American people. Find a middle ground, the place where most of us Americans live anyway, especially on this issue.
Well, we know the people of Uvalde love their famous resident. And what kind of impact do you think this is going to make? I mean, no doubt it's going to build the morale of folks there. But do you think this will go somewhere, Maria?
Kira, I think these families are feeling supported from around the world. And while the investigation continues here, they still want answers, but they are pushing for change. So whether families are headed to Washington, D.C., or whether they are staying here and continuing to advocate, we just spoke with a parent maybe about 30 minutes ago at the city council meeting. He was the only parent that was in the room, asking about summer school, for example. Summer school started today in Uvalde, and there were a lot of students very scared to go. And this parent who just lost his child, Amy Jo, stood up and said, why aren't we thinking about these children? Why aren't we pushing for change? I'm going to continue to speak out until we start to come to the table with some sort of resolution here, because our children, their lives and their health depend on it. So I think they feel very supported by the Matthew McConaughey's of the world, but also I think they feel supported knowing that there are so many people here in this community that continue to speak out despite the pain that they are feeling right now.
Maria, thank you so much. And you can catch more of Maria's reporting tonight on Nightline. Make sure to keep it here for our ABC News Live special as well, Guns in America from Buffalo to Uvalde. That's at 8:30 Eastern, 9 Pacific, right here on ABC News Live, also streaming on Hulu. And you can get more in-depth coverage on abcnews.com or by scanning the QR code that you see right there.
Hi, everyone. George Stephan.
All right, everybody, that's ABC News. This is content uploaded 3 days ago, so that would probably be Wednesday or Thursday content pertaining to Uvalde. The pediatrician, I can't imagine what it was like going into the school. And as he said, parents are outside waiting to see their children. And at some point, they're not bringing out any alive children. No children were walking out of the school. And they met up at a community center where, sadly, they had to be told that their children weren't coming home. So summer school has started a few days ago. I don't know what person would probably send their child even to summer school. Naturally, children need to be able to play catch up so they can be in the appropriate grade with their peers. But right now, I don't think any of those people in that school who have living children really care about their child going back to school. Naturally, they want their children to learn, but I'm sure that's the farthest thing from their mind right now. What will happen with Uvalde and the school system? Will they build a new school, have school in some alternative buildings in the city? And how will these people recover, the parents who've lost their children? Because this is something that most people do not want to face, is ever having to bury their child. And burying a small child, it's horrific, because you have plans for your children. You're hoping your children will grow up to be healthy, productive adults. And these children didn't even get to high school. They didn't even get to junior high school. No proms, no dances, nothing. All dreams broken now from one lone gunman who had just happened to turn 18, coming out of childhood himself, tainted, demonized by whatever thoughts were plaguing his mind. And someone did not pay attention to the killer's disposition. As they say, if you see something, say something. Because in the end, he was still a child before all this mess came about, before he decided to go out and gun down his grandmother, who happened to live, and then kill these people. He was a child right before he turned 18. Something to think about. The next commentary is pertaining to the teacher who allegedly left the door open. Lord have mercy. What a mess. Oh, Lord have mercy. The devil is so busy today. He doesn't take the day off. Two days ago, there was a 10-year-old boy arrested for sending threatening messages posted to my community board, Inside Edition. Very crazy. Lord have mercy. KXAN is the source. This was uploaded 9 days ago. Sorry, late.
The door of the school before the shooting.
She spoke with News Nation late last week, and KXAN's Daniel Marin has her account of what happened and frustration as the narrative keeps changing.
I'm telling the operator, he's got a gun, he's got a gun.
Speaking to News Nation last Thursday, the teacher, who is not being identified for her safety, says she propped open the door as she awaited a delivery, supplies for a school dance. That's when she says she saw the gunman crash his vehicle.
And they yell, he's got a gun. So I ran back. I ran back into my building. I still had the rock on the door. So I opened the door, kicked the rock, and then locked it.
Investigators say the door didn't lock and the shooter was able to enter. Police initially said the teacher had left the door open, just one in a string of details that have been corrected by investigators in the weeks since the tragedy. That prompted the Combined Law Enforcement Association of Texas, which represents police officers, to endorse an independent investigation by the U.S. Justice Department.
When you're managing crisis communications, you got to get a message out quickly and accurately. That's a lot of pressure. That's a lot of pressure.
UT Austin professor John Daly specializes in crisis communication. He says there were too many official voices early on in Uvalde.
DPS was talking, the local police were talking, the governor was talking, senators were talking.
UT journalism professor Renita Coleman says it's important for those delivering key information in any investigation to resist the natural human reaction to try and hide things that could make them look bad.
You just say, I made a mistake, if that's what you did, or you just say, I was scared. People are going to understand that more.
Daniel Marin, KXAN News.
Further adding to the confusion, Uvalde District Police Chief Pete Arredondo told CNN in a brief interview today that he is speaking regularly with DPS investigators, contradicting claims from state law enforcement yesterday that he had stopped cooperating.
Also,
KXAN is the source. So we heard different stories, versions in the beginning pertaining to everything, pertaining to who was on first, who was on second, who went in the building, who was in the hallway, who got shot, where the shooter was. It's all still puzzling. Versions from children who survived. So the teacher said she came out to get supplies, delivery. So the door was propped open with a rock. And this is when she sees the shooter shooting at the other people who were outside. I guess allegedly the men who were outside running to see about the crash. And then he's shooting at them, so they take off running. And so obviously she takes off running and kicks the rock, pulls the door. Allegedly, she said she pulled it shut and locked it. So my thing is, how can you lock it? Because 9 times out of 10, it's probably got that push bar. How can you lock a push bar if indeed on the inside of the door is a push bar? I think most of you know what I'm talking about. You push the metal piece in, and then the door opens. Hello, Joel. How are you? Yeah, it is interesting, Joel. Because nothing adds up. First version when she went outside to get food. Then it was she went outside because she heard a crash. Now it's she went outside out of her own mouth because she was expecting a delivery. So that means it had to be a lot that she couldn't carry it, because why would you need to prop the door open? What is the truth to the damn door? I'm going to stay on that because you got too many versions. You got too many versions of where the shooter was in the building. We got a child saying he walked out of the room at some point and she ran to the other room to see who was alive. Then we've got now Officer Arredondo saying, what, they were in the hallway? No, we got the teacher who survived saying he heard them out there at least 3 times. So that means they were coming and going. That's my assumption of what he means. Nothing adds up to the Uvalde massacre. Nothing. Just that we have a lot of dead children and 2 teachers. Now we hear of a wounded teacher that was never mentioned. And I find it very strange. You only dwelled on the 2 that died, which is natural, but you could at least told us, hey, in the meanwhile, we do have a teacher who was wounded, and he was also in one of the rooms, because we were chopping that up yesterday to where he was in vicinity to 111 and 112. So now we believe perhaps he was in one of the rooms. So that means there was 2 teachers in one room and 1 teacher in another room, and both rooms adjoined each other. So I was wondering if all the classrooms joined each other to another classroom. I don't know. But I'm curious to why a week later we're just now hearing that another teacher was wounded. Hey, 2 died, and by the way, another one was in the room. He got shot in the back. Let's hear what he has to say about May 24th. Wow, what a mess.
What's Guy Fieri doing at the neighborhood?
This is some strange story. And as this woman said, just tell the truth of what happened, because lying and making up stuff and everybody changing versions, it's ridiculous.
Mr. Reyes, what is going on? And
I said, I don't know what's going on, but let's go ahead and get under the table.
Let me go back a little bit.
Asking out loud, Mr. Reyes, what is going on? And I said, I don't know what's going on, but let's go ahead and get under the table. Get under the table and act like you're asleep. As they were doing that, and I was gathering them under the table and told them to act like they were going to sleep, is about the time when I turned around and saw him standing there. One of the students from the next door classroom was saying, "Officer, we're in here. We're in here." And then, but they had already left. And then
they had already left.
He got up from behind my desk, and he walked over there and he shot over there again.
Let's play that one more time.
And when I turned around and saw him standing there, one of the students from the next door classroom was saying, "Officer, we're in here. We're in here." And then, but they had already left. And then he got up from behind my desk, and he walked over there and he shot over there again.
See, this makes no sense. Good Morning America is the source for this information. So that means he had to have been in the adjoining room in order to hear a child say, "Hey, we're in here." Because I doubt if you were in a room across the hall, you would hear a child in another room saying, "Hey, we're in here," unless she was yelling. And you see, he said he went over there and he shot her. So I'm going to ask Arraigned, what did this teacher mean? You all left. You left and went where? You didn't have a radio, which makes no sense to be first responder or commander and not have a radio on your persons. Then you have demoted yourself from the responsibility of being the person in charge, which is so disrespectful to the dead and the living and to your own self. And the nerve to say you've worked in law enforcement near 30 years is a joke. You know not to take the damn radio off. And all these excuses about it bumping and swagging and hitting you and fanning you in the leg and the thigh sounds ridiculous. And yet you expect the general public to agree with this BS that you're feeding the news and this Hollywood shuffle you got going on, playing phone tag with the DPS. And it's just sad. You've given an interview with the Texas Tribune, which I read yesterday, very long-winded love letter to the public. If you all need verification for the information, please go back into the library and pull up my last live from yesterday. Probably took me 20 minutes just to read all that junk that you fed the newspaper. Basically saying, well, I freed 500 people from the school. Hey, don't I get a pat on the back for that? Yeah, we're going to pat you on the back for the 500 that are alive because they weren't in any danger. He was barricaded in that room because he knew you were outside the room. Now, it's not to say he couldn't have came out blazing glory, but he can't see through the walls to know how many people were out there. So he didn't come out. But you all knew he was in there. And then you're trying to downplay and act like, well, I thought everybody in the room was dead, but yet we have a teacher here saying a child is saying out loud, hey, we're in here. Hey, we're in here. So that means she was alive. So what made you think that everybody was dead? How many times did somebody from those rooms say, hey, we're in here? And we know you know that they were in there because that's how the last teacher got shot to death. because you all were asking her questions. Are you all right in there, from my understanding? And we also got commentary from you that you talked to the shooter, but he didn't respond. You asked him questions. So if you asked him questions, you had to ask a living person questions too. What's the timeline on the questions to the shooter and to anybody else in the room? It makes no sense you didn't have a radio on you. I don't understand the hell you're talking about. All these excuses you gave to the Tribune about this radio bumping your hip and leg, and I mean, and the antenna swagging. I mean, sir, really? Yes, you all failed those children, those teachers, the staff. You may have freed 500 out of windows or whichsoever, but somebody could have possibly lived out of the 21. We will not know because they're now dead. And it took you so damn long to get in there. 77 minutes, 78 minutes, whatever the number is. This is sickening. And how horrific it must be to be in a room with a person with an AR-15. They've shot up your schoolmates, your teacher, and you're praying he doesn't go back around the room and respray the room to make sure everybody's dead, because somebody's probably whimpering, fearful. Children don't know how to contain themselves to be quiet. That's why that little girl got shot again. Talking and messing with the cell phone. And the one girl who got up again to go in the room to see if everybody was alive or not, she took a heavy chance to even get up because she thought he left the room, she said. I heard him go outside into the hallway. So now we have to ask ourselves, when the shooter went in the hallway, where were you, Mr. Arraigned, and the other officer? Because allegedly it was two of you all on board in the beginning. So at what time did the other officers show up? I believe that's 11:35, if I'm not mistaken, when backup was called. You didn't have a radio to call, but you used your phone to call the dispatch to ask for tactical gear, keys to the door, and something else. This makes no sense. This is my commentary. I'm tired of talking about this because you're not going to get an answer. Because he's going to keep downplaying May 24th that he and the officers did the right thing. And the fact that he's downplaying his role as a commander is despicable. So like they said, so when the Border Patrol people came, who said what? Who said, hey, I'm finally going in this damn door? 1 hour and almost 30 minutes in, somebody decides to go in the damn door. You realize you didn't have tactical wear. You knew you didn't have tactical wear when you ran into school, you and the other officer. And I just find it strange. Nothing's coming in on his radio. So what do you want me to believe? That the other officer, he didn't have a radio on him either while he was in there hovering around with you? You all were whispering, so you said, as not to disturb the gunman. We didn't open the doors to the other classrooms because we didn't want him to hear the children bellowing out of the classrooms. We didn't want to upset him. Well, he was already upset. How about that? He's already a walking time bomb. Ticking time bomb. I'm trying to understand. Sniper. Yes, that's what I forgot to say. Sniper, tactical gear, and keys. You called into the dispatch from your cell phone. And yet a sniper never took down the killer. The sniper could have sniped him out through a window. But then you have an excuse for that as well. You didn't mind breaking out windows in the other classrooms to free the other 500 allegedly, but you didn't think a sniper, the same person you said you called for, he shouldn't have stood outside of a window and shot through the window and killed the shooter. And you want me to believe that a sniper doesn't have artillery to have a scope on the gun to see somebody dressed in black in a classroom with the lights off? This is just absolutely ridiculous. The lame excuses on and on and on. I don't even know why you even mentioned that you called the dispatch. What is the point in asking for backup, tactical gear, or whatever when you all hovered around in the hallway for 77 minutes, allegedly? So I'd like to know who was the person that decided to go into the rooms to take the shooter down, since you said you were just a first responder and not a commander in charge. Obviously, somebody from the Border Patrol said, well, we'll go in. Very sickening. This is a two-part live pertaining to the teacher who left the door open at the school. Various versions of her going out and her reasons for going out, leaving the door open. The third teacher that was shot that nobody talked about in the beginning. I've played you his commentary. I do believe he will not be teaching again. And as most of you know, the children will not be returning to school in the fall. And the school, there are people who are hoping that they will demolish the school. We will see what they do. There's also a $100 million lawsuit filed by the victims' families. I mentioned that yesterday. And the first part of this live is pertaining to Cal City. Jacqueline and Trezell West are facing 2 new charges, along with the other charges against their said children, who are believed to be deceased, Orrin and Orson. And all that information is at the beginning of this live. If you'd like to donate to the channel, $ Big Angie 129 Cash App. All super chats and stickers are welcome during this live. Thank you all so much for joining me. If you have something you'd like to say pertaining to the indictment against the West couple, the 2 new charges of conspiracy and involuntary manslaughter, those are the 2 new charges. Please hit the link. If you have something you'd like to say about the Uvalde massacre, the teacher who has now spoken, who was wounded, that nobody decided to tell us about, the teacher who left the door open, the $100 million lawsuit, Arraigned condoning the late response to the shooting. Please hit the link. Thank you for joining me. $144 viewing. Amen. Hope you all are well out there. Know that this is the season for warm weather. Most of you know this. If you see any child sitting inside of a car unattended with the doors shut, windows up or down, please call 911. Many people leave their children in the car unattended. Somebody decided to leave 4 of her children in a Walmart parking lot while she shopped for 1 hour. Information I got earlier in the queue. I will bring you an update possibly to my community page. I may not make a video, but I will post it to my community page. Know that this is not appropriate to leave your children in the car, especially in extreme temperatures and a long period. Doesn't matter what the season is, because anything can happen with a child in a car, especially if you have left the car running with or without a key, depending on if you're driving a modern car. Modern cars now start with a push button. All a child has to do is move the gear shaft and be going forward or backward. Kill the kids in the car and somebody else. Do not leave your children in a car. You know it's not right. Don't do it. And the fact that people see children dying every year in the summer months, fall, in hot cars, it baffles me. Once again, why you all keep leaving your kids in the damn car, which is really no different than talking about people who hurt children, people who hurt others. And I've wondered that. You're watching the news, hearing somebody been murdered. So why then would you go out today or tomorrow and murder somebody deliberately? Stalk somebody, break in their house, whatever. Hire somebody to kill somebody. It's all the same. You see that they go to jail, they get a guilty sentence, and yet you then will go right in behind them, don't know them, and say to yourself, well, I'll try to see if I get away with it. What is the logic behind murdering people? Just, I don't understand. It's very, very baffling to me. I don't understand anything that goes on. 135 viewing. If you want to join us in a conversation, if you'd like to give your opinion pertaining to Cal City, the children, the information that was relayed in the indictment months ago, the new charges put on file Friday against the West couple, the Uvalde shooting, all the different versions pertaining to what happened in that schoolroom, the hallway, teacher shot, wounded in the room with the kids that survived, that was never mentioned in the beginning. The teacher who left the door open, her many versions of why she went outside to get food, to get supplies. She heard a crash, 3 different versions. Please hit the link. Thank you for joining. It's just, I don't understand nothing that goes on around here. I don't think they'll ever get to the truth of what happened in Uvalde. That's how that's looking to me. I don't know how many times you can keep spinning a yarn round and round and round. It's pretty sad. I'll put it here one more time. If not, I will check out of here. No one has anything they'd like to bring to the table. Hope you all are well out there. As I said, if you see something, say something. Don't call DHS. From here on out, if you see anything derogatory pertaining to a child, just call 911, put an end to it. Nobody has time to be dialing 1-800 numbers. Just call the police. Let them deal with it. Cal City, new charges against Jacqueline and Giselle West. Second topic is pertaining to the shootings in Uvalde, Texas. What will become of this school, the children, the community? Lawsuit filed. Chief Arraigned is taking basically no responsibility. He condones the actions of himself and the officers on May 24th. And the teacher who propped the door open has spoken, and a wounded teacher who was also in the room has come forward to speak. And they're still currently burying the decedents. Prayers to the families and the community and the children and staff of the school. That's the latest I have. I want to see if there's anything else on my community board I want to mention before I check out of here. Any more updates, stories. And I also brought you information from the pediatrician, brief statement from him. Let's play a little commentary uploaded 2 days ago from Inside Edition pertaining to a child sending another child threatening messages. This is about a 10-year-old boy. Thank you for joining me.
And though his dad says he doesn't deny that the little boy talked of guns, he says it was the stupid humor of a child. And now he's speaking exclusively with Inside Edition.
The video was jarring. A 10-year-old Florida boy marched in front of photographers as he's taken away in handcuffs. Then came this, a shocking mugshot, unblurred despite his age. The reason? Sending what cops say were threatening messages just 4 days after the Uvalde, Texas school massacre. According to the police report, Daniel Marquez, a 5th grader, sent a Google image of 4 assault rifles to a friend and texted, "I bought this," followed by another text, "Get ready for water day." an upcoming gathering for students with good grades. The other boy's father contacted police, and within hours, the 10-year-old was in cuffs, and his mugshot broadcast around the world.
To me, heartbreaking and very confusing.
Derek Marquez, an Army veteran, is the 10-year-old's father, and he's speaking out to Inside Edition. After 11 days, his son is still in custody at a juvenile detention center near Naples, Florida. Your son, is he a troublemaker? Does he have any kind of history of making threats?
He's never been in trouble. He's never had any type of disciplinary action, not even in school.
Do you understand, does Daniel understand that sending these messages after what we saw in Texas just seems like a huge mistake?
I don't think Daniel really understood the gravity of the situation.
The local sheriff, Carmine Marceno, is defending his hardline response. He says he released the mugshot, even though Daniel is a minor, to send a clear message. Do you stand by this arrest?
100% I stand behind this arrest. I say, well, as a sheriff, it's a 10-year-old, come on, it's a 10-year-old. And I don't look into that threat, okay? And next thing I know, God forbid,
right,
there's a mass shooting.
Exactly.
God forbid, he commits a tragic act.
Exactly.
You and I are talking on a much different place, and it's all my fault.
Letitia Kim is the boy's attorney.
What was done by Sheriff Marceno was part of his larger political agenda. He has made it clear that he is the law and order sheriff. What we have here is fake law and order and real consequences to defenseless children, such as Daniel.
Meanwhile, Congress held hearings today on gun violence and the Uvalde massacre, including videotaped testimony from survivor Maya Cerrillo. She says she smeared blood on her face and played dead.
I thought he was going to come back to the room, try to grab the blood and put it all on me.
The United States Attorney General today announced an independent investigation into the delayed police response in Uvalde.
Inside Edition. So now we have an independent investigation. So the government is steadily on the case of the Uvalde massacre, as they should be. Amen. And you heard the child testified for the government pertaining to what happened in that schoolhouse. What happened to this kid? Do you think he should have been arrested? Yes, it should be taken serious. This attorney needs to shut up. She's talking stupid people talk. Because as the sheriff said, had I ignored it and he did something, then what? You wanted him to ignore it? The father calls the police and says, hey, my child got this message from another student. I don't know if it's a joke or not. So once the information is passed to law enforcement, it's up to law enforcement to decide what to do with the given information. He had every right to go investigate the situation. And it doesn't matter if he thinks the boy would do something or not. It's not up for the sheriff to decide the mind of the child, what he would and would not do, what he has access to. He doesn't know the kid. He arrested him. All I can say is, let the law handle it. The father's crying here in this interview. I don't know what's wrong. No, he ain't never been in no trouble. But that's the point. Just because he hasn't been in any trouble doesn't mean his mind isn't warped. You don't know if he's been bullied at school. He's not getting the attention at home. He's not getting love and attention at home. If he's being bullied by other siblings, neighborhood children, or he's just an insecure kid who doesn't feel good about himself. He sent those pictures for a reason. Looking forward to Water Day? Are you serious? And that's supposed to be taken as a joke? And as the official said, had he done nothing and then the boy went and done something, how is he going to explain that he got a call from the father of the boy who received the photographs? Come on now. Yes, they have to be held accountable, the children. He has to know that it's inappropriate because we all joke with each other, as children, adults, teenagers. But you have to be very careful what you speak off your tongue, especially when you're angry, you're mad at your friend, foe, the lady at Walmart. I could just choke her. I could just do this. God forbid something happens to them. First thing they say, well, that lady was just in here cussing and fussing, said she was mad because she got her order wrong or she rung up something. You understand what I'm saying? You have to be very careful what you spin off your tongue. Good evening, Miss Mildred. How are you? Thank you, honey, for joining us. This happens every day when people make threats about people, empty threats. They don't really have to mean it, but once you say it, it's out there. And then something happens to Joe, Petey, Mary. Now everybody's pointing a finger at you. Well, she was in the room. They were fussing, cussing. She said she'd kill her. Now the lady's dead. So who do you think they come look for? Anybody that had a problem with Mary and the person who made the open threats. It's common sense. So it can't be any different for a child. And this child knows better. 10 years old, he knows better than to be sending those guns right after this Uvalde shooting, 4 days after. He sends his classmate these pictures of heavy artillery, 4 big boy guns, and then says, looking forward to Water Day. And you want me to believe the little 10-year-old? He doesn't know what he just sent in a text message. He knew exactly what he was doing. He knew exactly what he was saying. And rather he was just joking. Well, we will let the judge decide on how funny the joke was. Not for me to decide. Because the little boy could have showed his father. The little boy could have not showed his father. The little boy's father could have said, don't worry about it, and not even called the police. He did the right thing. Everybody did the right thing except for the little boy that sent the text message. The child that received the message did the right thing, and his father did the right thing by taking the information and passing it on to law enforcement. It is time for people to stop sitting by and acting like nothing is important. We live in a society where everybody thinks everything is funny, everything's a joke, everybody is crass. A lot of people are very crass. If you ever look at the comments in some of these articles in the YouTube queue, there's always a smart ass in the group making nasty derogatory comments about the dead, about the wounded. Everything's a joke. Even the jokes about Mr. Trouble, the rapper, killed in Atlanta in a woman's bedroom. What's funny about that? So he went and had sex with a woman. Now he's dead. What's funny? Help me understand. Because we don't know what he knew about the woman. We don't know what she told him. So let's say she told him nothing. Now he's dead. Somebody has to bury this man. This man was also a father. He was a child. He belonged to somebody. Somebody's plural. And most importantly, he's a child of God. And all of us matter in the eyes of God, whether we are tainted or not, whether you believe in God or not. So what's funny about it? There's a lot of rude, nasty people out here. And I tell you, with social media, you realize how sick people are. Joining hate groups, racist groups, spinning venom 24 hours a day on social media, up all day and night, leaving nasty comments about Peter, Paul, Dick, what somebody did, what somebody said, who committed a crime, black man shot this, a black man did this. You got nasty jokes and nasty emojis. Always something nasty said. And yet you want us to believe you are different than the person who committed the crime. Possibly not. And another thing, I am all for the Constitution as far as a citizen carrying a gun, so that he or she is a licensed carrier. But it does not mean because the state did a background check, let you have the gun, means you are mentally stable to carry the weapon, store the weapon, use the weapon. Because many of you are not stable. You have no business with a gun. You are irresponsible in where you leave your gun. Leaving your gun in the assets of children, other participants in your house who are also not stable. So just because you are licensed does not mean you deserve to carry a weapon. And also you need to have training to operate. So maybe they need to change the guidelines with owning a weapon. I need to get a mental statement from your damn physician that you able mentally, criminal background, and also training. So you come in here, maybe you need to go take training first before I issue this weapon, a mental evaluation before I issue this weapon, and a criminal background. How about that? Maybe that's what we need to have. You have to go to the shooting range and take so many shots on a target. You need to see a damn physician psychiatrist. I'm just saying. Because some of you don't need a weapon. Period. And you have seen too many cases of people who were licensed carriers, did not have a felony, and they had no business with a gun. Because they pop off, somebody says one thing they don't like, they pull a gun out. Somebody's walking down the street with a hoodie on. Oh my God, he's getting ready to go rob somebody. Then you shoot him to death. And then you walk free after 12 members say it's okay. You go across state lines to go join the cavalry because people are rioting. And you shoot up a whole damn block of people. You get walk free. 12 members say, let him go. You had no business with a gun. Rather, you went over there to allegedly help with people in a riot. It wasn't your place to be over there. Because one, you was a minor and you didn't even live in that state, and it was none of your damn business. See, that's what's wrong with a lot of us. We don't know how to stay in our lane. We always want to be Captain Save-A-Ho. Excuse my language, but it's the truth. There are a lot of busy bodies out here. Nosy Karens, messy Karens, busy Bobs, always in something. Always wanting to go run and see what everybody's doing, what everybody's talking about. Oh, let me go get my gun. You can't take care of your own house. Now you want to worry about what the hell they're doing out there in the street. Yes, 2 new charges. Conspiracy and involuntary murder on the charges for Jacqueline and Giselle West. They're facing 7 charges each in the deaths of Orrin and Orson. That's basically my commentary for this Saturday afternoon. If you need to go back to the beginning of this live, I bring you commentary pertaining to the Uvalde shootings. The woman that left the door open, her rendition of that day. The teacher that was wounded also in the room. Funeral services currently being held. And the new charges against Jacqueline and Giselle West in the murder of their children. You're welcome, dear. The trial starts July 25th. The state is going forward with the indictment. You're welcome, Ms. Stone. If you would like to give your commentary before I check out of here, I have left the link in the chat if you want to give your opinion on Uvalde and Cal City. If you'd like to give your opinion about the 2 cases. If not, I will talk to you all on another day. It's a beautiful day in a high 10. Too pretty to be in here. But I wanted to bring you the said update pertaining to that. And I will read the indictment again for those that are here that just jumped in. Hold on a minute. Let me read it. So make sure I pronounce everything correctly. KRNN4. News 4 is the source. The adoptive parents of Orrin and Orson West were arraigned Friday on new charges of involuntary manslaughter and conspiracy. Giselle and Jacqueline West arrested in March on suspicion of killing Orrin 4, Orson 3. Now each face a total of 7 charges. The grand jury returned a superseding indictment that includes new charges as well as those brought in the original indictment in March. In all, the West faced 2 counts of second-degree murder, 2 counts of child cruelty, falsely reporting an emergency, involuntary manslaughter, and conspiracy. They have been held without bond, but motions by the attorney, Judith K. Dulcet, by the judge, said that they can seek bail. The lawyers can seek bail on the defendants at a later date, which I don't understand that. You're saying you're holding them without bond, bail, or whatever. So what's the purpose of a later date? How do you all feel about that? Both getting bond later, bail later, excuse me. She says, however, motion seeking bail could be filed on behalf of both defendants and be heard at a later date. Judge Judith K. Dulcet. Because the attorney for Jacqueline West, Ms. Torres Stallings, asked that bail be set for her client. Where is she going to get some money, Ms. Stallings? I'm going to play devil's advocate before I check out of here. Where is Jackie going to get some money? They're going to sell that Winnebago, or has to, you all sees that, I'm sure, when you arrested them. That little house they had on wheels. So where is she going to get some money? The bail is going to be damn near $2 million, I'm sure. They killed 2 kids. They lied about the kids being dead. They had their kids kill the kids. So you think a judge is getting ready to let her walk out of there with what? Paying what? $2,000 to get out of jail? Come on now. I don't see why the judge would even waste a breath of even entertaining any dollar amount. Because even if she sets it high, due to the fact of it being a serious crime against children, my thing is it's a waste of point, it's a waste of paperwork, and a waste of spit and saliva to go into court playing around when you know they killed the kids. Just stop it. Just stop it. There's no point in wasting time in the courtroom when you know the charges. That's the sad information. If you need to go back to hear my commentary pertaining to the charges against the 2, I do feel they're guilty. I feel like they're wasting the taxpayers' money by going to court and pleading not guilty. I believe their children are the witnesses and the culprits that helped them kill the kids. I believe this was intentional homicide because you cannot explain killing 2 children and both are missing. And then both have been deemed dead by the district attorney who has brought forth the charges against Jacqueline and Giselle West. I do believe this is intentional homicide on behalf of the 2 defendants, and they are wasting the taxpayers' money. And the fact that they would coerce their children and murdering their other children is despicable. There's just no appropriate word to use for these 2 machines. They are vile. And the fact that they procreated their own 2 children is even more disturbing. Now we have to wait to see which child aided in killing the children. Or was it more than one? What was the motive? Where are the children? And were they killed at the same time and discarded together? Those questions, we will hopefully get an answer by the time the trial is over. The trial date starts July 25th. Thank you for joining me. If you'd like to donate to the channel, $ Big Andrew, 129 Cash App. You all have a wonderful weekend. God bless all of you. This is my commentary pertaining to Uvalde and the 2 new charges against Jacqueline and Giselle West. This is Everyday Shenanigans. Thank you.